Hello Middle School Art Club. So I just wanted to post a quick video for those of you who might work on this at home or might miss the next meeting or anything like that. This is the marker and water example. I will show you the Zentangle example later, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about the process of adding color to our background here. So we are going to be using just regular old markers. You're going to get some water and some brushes. You want probably a couple of different size brushes just in case you have some smaller areas and some larger ones. And then you're going to start with the designs. Start with the bigger spaces behind. As you can see in the pictures that are posted on Google Classrooms, you do not color in the whole space. All you do is just like what I'm going to do here in this section. I'm just going to outline sort of the negative space. So I'm not going to be putting any color into the actual pattern or the design itself yet. Right now, all I'm doing is working on that space that goes behind my pattern. Because anytime you're working on a piece of art, you want to work from the back toward the front. So again, right now I'm just going to get kind of an outline in here. And it's okay if it's not 100% perfect. Obviously we want it to look neat and to take our time on it. But that's one of the best things about this particular method, is that it does not have to be completely perfect for it to still turn out really well. So now I've got, oops, forgot a spot. So now I've got my whole sort of negative space of that design sort of outlined. So then I'm just going to take a brush. I'm going to get a relatively small brush. And I'm just going to dip it in my water and get it good and wet. And then I'm just going to start sort of getting that marker wet. And then as you can see, it's going to start spreading and kind of filling in that space. So this is just a really fun, sort of simple and different way, sort of like using watercolors, but you have a little more control over it, and you can get a lot of nice areas that have lighter and darker values of each color that you use. And this is also how we will eventually be completing the pumpkin portion with different shades of orange and things like that. But that's also obviously how we will be doing most of the larger spaces of our design and our pattern backgrounds. So that would be sort of the background of that area. I would want to let that dry before I do anything else to it. So what I'm going to do in the meantime is just start on my ghosts. I'm going to start with my background area of the ghosts, and I think I'm going to use green. So I want to use just a green marker. And being careful not to bump into that blue section with my hand, I'm just going to start outlining my ghosts. Turn the page however you need, because it's always going to be neater and more helpful and easier if you turn the page so that the tip of your marker or the tip of your brush or pencil, whatever you're using, is along that edge, so that you can have better control over where your mark and your lines go. So I'm just going to outline all my little ghosts. And you can see that this marker is a little dry, so what I'm going to do is actually just go ahead and see if I can find a marker that's not as dry. It's okay if it's a slightly different green. And kind of just go back over that, because you want to use sort of juicier markers for this step, because they tend to work best in terms of making the color move around like we just watched with the blue. So you'll see I'm not too worried about making it exactly perfect. because I actually like when some of the areas are thicker and thinner, because what that does is kind of change up how much of the darker green or the darker color I'm going to have in that section. So I kind of like the variety that that brings. Just outlining my ghosts. And you can see in the section right next to the ghosts, I used multiple colors in my outline. I put some pink and I put some blue. So then I end up with pink, blue, and purple, because pink and blue make purple. And then when I go to add the water, depending on where I put more blue or more pink, determined the exact colors of this section. So now I've got my ghosts on there, outlined. I'm just going to get a brush, get it good and wet. And I'm just going to start adding in the water. So you're going to see the colors start to move. If your color doesn't move and spread as much as you want to, don't worry about it. Keep going, finish that whole layer, and then once it dries, you can do the whole process again. Don't try to fix it while you still have water on the page, because all that's going to do is mess up your markers and probably mess up your artwork. Whereas if you let the whole first layer dry and then go back over it with the second layer of the same technique, it'll work much better for you. So again, you can see the areas where I have thicker outlines, my green is darker, and there's more pigment to spread around in that water. The areas where I have a thinner outline, the green is going to be lighter and smoother a little bit with less variation. Either way is perfectly fine. The whole point is to experiment with it and just kind of see what you can do. So again, I'm going to be starting on the background spaces of all of my pattern and design sections before I move into like the ghosts or the witch hats or any of those smaller details. I did the stripes the exact same way. I did all of the orange ones and then I did all of the black ones. You do not want to do something like this section all at the same time. So I did all my orange stripes, I let them dry, and then I went back in and did all of my black stripes. That way my orange and my black did not mix. And that's pretty much all there is to it. And then if I wanted to add another color to this, or if I wanted to change up the value, kind of add another layer, I could do that, but I would want to let it dry completely first. So I'm going to do all of these spaces on the backgrounds, and then I'm going to go in and do some of the more detail areas. And then once my whole background is done, I'm going to do my pumpkin in very much the same way. So let's see. Since this letter, these words, is written in Sharpie, I know that it's not going to bleed when I paint over it with water. So I'm just going to make my whole outline of that section red, since my blue is dry enough to go right next to it now. And I'm going to do the same thing. Get it nice and wet, and you'll see that the red is going to spread, but not the black. And it doesn't spread too awfully much, but it will spread some. And then, of course, if I want to make it spread more, I'm going to let it dry and then do a whole nother layer instead of trying to go directly in while that is still wet. So the next video that I'm going to show you, I'll have things a little further along, and we'll be talking about some of the more detailed areas of the background.